Good morning, darlings. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about Benvolio. Benvolio. How we love him. Let us count the ways. I think, for me, personally speaking, Benvolio is a bit underrated in this play. He's nobody's favourite character, and he should be, because he's lovely. So, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we call etymology. Now, this is not to be confused with entomology, which is the study of creepy crawlies and bugs, which I have no interest in whatsoever. Etymology is the history and origins of words. Now, Benvolio's name, you'll see it here on the screen. Benvolio's name means benevolent, and benevolent means well-meaning and kindly. And this is how Shakespeare wrote his personality. He wrote him. He's a really sweet young man. He's lovely. He's trustworthy. Everybody believes him. There's nothing, there's no malice in him. There's no evil. There's no intent. When he drew his sword in the fight that we saw in the previous scene, it was only to try and make peace. And here we've got Benvolio's interaction with his uncle, Lord Montague, who has asked what on earth has just happened. And Benvolio says, "Here were the servants of your adversary." Now, adversary here means enemy. So he's talking about the Capulets. So let's write that down. Trying desperately to master this pen. So, here were the servants of your adversary and yours, and your servants, close fighting ere I did approach. So I went over there to see what was going on. I drew, so here, this is not like with pens and pencils and a nice big notepad and some colours. He's not Bob Ross. And if you don't know who Bob Ross is, you need to YouTube it. It's amazing. He drew his sword to part them. So he was trying to keep the peace. So he's quite like the prince. Okay, he was trying to keep the peace. This is why we like him. He's a nice guy. He doesn't partake in this fighting. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to cause an issue. He doesn't want to cause any hassle or any, evil intent. He just wants everybody to get along. And he's so lovely, and he's so friendly, and he's so well-meaning, and he's so kindly, and all these things under here, these synonyms: big-hearted, compassionate, tolerant, good-natured. He's all of these things, and Shakespeare writes him really well in just a few key passages. He writes him really well with these things in mind, and it's a really good job. He's done a really good job of it. If you hear a funny noise in a minute, it is my husky who is currently leaning on my writing arm. So, his assessment then, because he is all these things and he has this reputation for being all these things, his assessment of any situation is trusted by the prince and by Lord Montague as an honest account. He's not biased. He hasn't got a preference one way or the other. He's got an honest assessment, an honest appraisal. He says, the fiery Tybalt, and I don't think that anybody can be this adjective here. So we're just going to write that down. Adjective. This adjective here cannot be disagreed with. Tybalt is fiery. Tybalt has got a temper on him. There's nothing calming about Tybalt, is there? He is he's got a fiery personality. He said, I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee, because he was talking about peace. I hate the word. And so he is fiery. He's got this passionate, not necessarily in a good way, personality. So he says the fiery Tybalt with his sword prepared to fight, to kill, which as he breathed defiance to my ears. So he was defiant. Tybalt was defiant. Tybalt did not want peace. He quite clearly stated, peace, I hate the word as I hate hell, all Montagues, and thee. Tybalt was lumping those three things together. And for Catholics to hate hell, that's quite important. So to equate Benvolio and the Montagues with hell, that is really significant. It really demonstrates just how intensely he hates them, because Catholics do not want to go to hell and they hate it. So Benvolio continues then. He swung about his head and cut the winds, who nothing hurt, withal hissed him in scorn. So he didn't hurt anything, but he was swinging his sword about his head. He meant to, but he didn't hurt anything. While we were interchanging thrusts and blows, came more and more to and fought on part and part. So this is where it got out of control. So here, this is where it got out of control. There were too many people. So there were lots of people. Yeah, from both sides, he says, fought part on part. Come more and more fought part on part. So this is the Montagues and the Capulets, both sides. Until the prince came, who parted either part. So the prince came and separated everybody. Okay? So, I just realised I have drawn all over those words. I'm very sorry, my darlings. Let me just erase that for you. Is it going to work? Yes, it's going to work. I'm still trying to grasp this new technology. You will have to bear with me. Okay, so let me just draw the circle back in for you. So thrusts and blows fought part on part. Okay, so what we need to do then is here, we've got a little task for you, just because I think Benvolio is underappreciated and I think we should be investigating a bit more. So as you can see, as usual, you have bullet points here to help you answer that question. So where do we see Benvolio living up to his name in this speech? And if you don't know what that means, it means where do we see him act as his name tells us he is? Where do we see him acting in the way that his name suggests he is? Where do we see his personality coming out? Where do we see him being well-meaning and kindly? Where do we see him being benevolent? So we have to then find some quotes where we see him being well-meaning or kindly, because he could have said, and I'll give you this as a little hint or a tip, he could have said much worse about Tybalt here. He called him fiery, which is an honest appraisal of his personality. He could have called him much worse, but he didn't. He was honest. He was accurate. He didn't exaggerate. He didn't unnecessarily label. So that might be a nice place to start. So my other question then, and this is where you are going to get into the really high marks when you come into analysis of stuff like this. So why is this? Why is a key word here. When we are presented with a new character and we see what sort of personality they've got or what actions they take, we need to think smart people, and we are all smart, and we all have the ability to be even smarter if we work at it. Smart people think, why is that the way it is? Why is that man wearing that blue coat with those Wellingtons? Where's he been? Where's he going? Why is that woman across there? Why is she wearing an apron? What is she doing? Why is that man over there wearing a skirt? Whatever it is, we have to think why. So why then is this the first real thing that the audience sees about Benvolio? With everything I've just discussed, you might find some clues. So if you have to go back a bit and think about it, that's absolutely fine. But this isn't one of those times where I give you the answer. It's one of those times where you work it out for yourself. What methods does Shakespeare use to present this to the audience? Okay, so I've got a little pull tab for you here. And it says, if we can find, we'll put it up here. Key terms, oxymoronic. Where is the oxymoron in this passage? Why is it so important to understand as the audience, as we the audience, at this stage in the play? So you need to find an oxymoron. If you don't know what an oxymoron is, you need to find the definition. However, for those of you who are really struggling, haven't got a clue, oxymoron is a combination of two opposite words that have different meanings combined together to make a new phrase or saying that means something else. So act naturally, civil war, friendly fire. These are all oxymorons. So this is something you're going to have to find in this extract. I'm not going to help you with this. You're going to do it yourself. I will know if you've copied ideas off the internet. But, you know, you'll do so at your own peril on account of the fact that if you can't work this out for yourself, then you're doing yourself a disservice when it comes to perhaps having this or something like it in the exam and not having those internet resources to fall back on. It's better that you build up your own brain power at this point. Do you like my alliteration there? Better that you build up your own brain power. I'm so cool. Jokes, obs. How then does Benvolio contrast the theme of conflict in this act and scene? And what about in the rest of the play? And you can answer that bit because you've seen it. And then with this bit, I might even contrast him to perhaps the fiery Tybalt if I was really, really, really wanting to do a really good job. Now, there are two little sub-questions here for this one, or this last point, this third point. Is this the reason that he is the only one in their group who doesn't die? So Mercutio dies, Romeo dies, Tybalt dies, Benvolio doesn't. Paris dies, Lady Montague dies, Benvolio doesn't. Is this the reason, because he's well-meaning and kindly, that he doesn't die? And then this is where you are going to get your really good marks. What is Shakespeare trying to say about this? What's he trying to say when we consider his personality? What is Shakespeare's message about having a personality like Benvolio's and the fact that he doesn't die? Some things for you to consider. As usual, you can type this up. You can write it up in your book and take a photo. Either way, you can submit your work into the submissions folder. You can tweet me if you get stuck at Miss Hine English. You can also email me. As usual, I expect you to work very hard. I expect you to use your brains. This is quite challenging. There is a lot to think about, which I have not given you all the tools that you'll need. You will have to find some stuff out for yourselves. I expect you to work hard. I expect you to do your best. I expect you to stay in the house. I expect you to wash your hands with soap. And I expect you to stay safe. I miss you. Take care. And I'll see you in the next video.